identity is very much attached to this Nile River, and now we feel like it's being stolen from us. The reality is that there is a very strong nationalistic propaganda inside Ethiopia that promotes or claims that Ethiopia owns the Nile River, and thus it can keep the water of the Nile behind the dam and sell it to downstream countries for money, and or even to other neighbor countries in Africa. But all what we are calling for is to make sure that we still have a fair share in the Nile River.
What are the risks here? Is Egypt prepared to go to war over this?
This video shows why Egyptians need to face reality and engage in open and frank discussions to change or update their views on Nile water and upstream countries. For sound and stable cooperation, the first step should be the change of attitude, the positive attitude being that each riparian state has the right to equitable share of the Nile water. Please, after watching the video, take your time to listen to the commentary that follows.
We're joined by Dalia Ziada, an award-winning writer and the director at the Mean Center for Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean Studies. She joins us tonight from Cairo. Good evening to you, and thank you for joining us. So, 2/3 of Ethiopia's population currently has no access to electricity. This dam could solve that problem. Why shouldn't they go ahead and use hydropower?
In fact, I would speak from the perspective of how the Egyptians are seeing this. Of course, we would like the Ethiopian people to have access to electricity. We would like their problem that makes more than 60% of population deprived of basic energy resource like electricity to have this. And actually, Egypt is not minding the building of the dam itself. But all what we are calling for is to make sure that we still have a fair share in the Nile River. Because actually, contrary to what Mr. Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, is saying to media and in public, that he cares for the interests of Egypt and Sudan, and he does not want to hurt the downstream countries. This is not the reality on the ground. The reality is that there is a very strong nationalistic propaganda inside Ethiopia that promotes or claims that Ethiopia owns the Nile River, and thus it can keep the water of the Nile behind the dam and sell it to downstream countries for money, and or even to other neighbor countries in Africa, which is going to be very dangerous, very negatively affecting our economy and also our relation, our cultural and social relation to the Nile. Actually, most of Egyptians look at the Nile not only as a source for clean water, for agriculture and drinking. It's not a matter of, not only a matter of water security, but actually it's a matter of cultural identity. Our identity is very much attached to this Nile River, and now we feel like it's being stolen from us.
Yes, I understand.
So this is the problem.
Yes, I understand that, and it's right, isn't it? Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia have all sat down and talked about this in the past. Is Egypt right then when it says that Ethiopia is actually violating previous agreements when it goes ahead and uses this dam?
Actually, the negotiations have been going on for almost 2 decades now. Ethiopia all the time says that it's willing to do negotiations, but it wants to keep it on regional level, make it only, as they say, an African issue that should be solved within Africa. They refuse any intervention by any international powers or organizations like the United Nations, for example, despite Egypt and Sudan several attempts actually to include other international and regional players. And this led us to the current situation where Ethiopia is unilaterally going on with building the dam, first building the dam, then filling the first stage and the second stage without any consultations with Egypt and the Sudan, and now starting the electricity production operations, which actually brings us to a very important question. Okay, we understand that Ethiopia the Ethiopian government wants to provide electricity to its people. Fine, but actually clicking a button on the screen won't just send the electricity to the people. There must be an infrastructure that supports what the dam is going to produce. This infrastructure Ethiopia does not have up till this moment, and Egypt has offered many times to help Ethiopia with building this infrastructure, but unfortunately, Ethiopia is insisting to go on unilaterally, violating the declaration of principles signed with Egypt and Sudan in 2015, which actually stipulates that Ethiopia should consult with Egypt and Sudan before taking any action related to filling the dam or starting the operations of the dam. And unfortunately, Ethiopia never committed.
Well, Ethiopia it's unlikely to back down on this, isn't it? I mean, this is something they've spent millions on. It's kind of something of a national dream for them that's been in the pipeline for decades, as you said. What are the risks here? Is Egypt prepared to go to war over this?
That's a very interesting question, because actually there are many voices inside Egypt now that are saying, okay, we are fed up with negotiations and diplomatic channels. It's time to launch war on Ethiopia. Okay, although it's a very radical way of looking at the issue, I think the military option is still open. The Egyptian president El-Sisi before said that Egypt have all options open and it can take actions. He said it very clearly that risk the stability and security of this region if it has to. But up till now, although this is an option that we have, it does not seem realistic. Egypt is still insistent on keeping the security and the stability of the region. Is still interested also in making sure the Ethiopian people get what they want and get well. But all what we are looking for in Egypt, I mean, the Egyptian government, what it is looking for is cooperation from the Ethiopian side. The Ethiopian side does not want to cooperate. That only the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is saying that we care for the Egyptian people and so on. But do you? Is it really what you're doing? This is not what he's doing. He's actually risking our future, risking our economy. And also, by the way, it's not only an African issue, it's also an international issue. Because if anything happens in this region, it's very close to it's at the Red Sea, Horn of Africa, Red Sea, and you have the Yemen crisis at the other side. It will be a big issue for the whole region. So it's an international security issue that I think everyone should intervene to help resolve it before it's too late.
It's certainly a fascinating topic, and it's great to talk to you, Dalia Ziada. Thank you very much indeed.
The online dictionary defines myth as a widely held, but false belief, and in this interview, we have witnessed so many of those false beliefs. To begin with, the upper riparian states, which are the source of the Nile water, have been claiming that they have natural and legal rights to exploit their natural resources within their territory. However, due to their geographic, economic and political positions, the upstream countries have been bystanders, while the downstream states have been using the Nile waters almost exclusively. Ethiopia, for instance, contributing about 86% of the entire volume of the Nile waters, has been using almost nothing, while Egypt, contributing nothing, uses most of the Nile water. Consequently, this unfair state of affairs has given rise to suspicious and fearful relations between the two Nile basin states. Owing to geographical, political and economic reasons, Ethiopia couldn't develop its water resources. On the part of Egypt, surprisingly, there is an over-exaggerated sensitivity that if a dam is built on the highlands of Ethiopia to harness the waters of the Nile, it will expose Egyptian vulnerability. With the end of British colonial rule in the area, Egypt pursued the same objective of securing the Nile water to its exclusive benefits. The legal entitlement based on historic right or prior use in effect precludes other riparian states from using the shared water resources of the Nile. This deeply entrenched and time-old habit, which refuses to recognize the rightful shares of other riparian states in the use of the Nile waters, has been one of the most difficult hurdles in dealing with the Nile issues and dictating against any form of negotiation. Contrary to common sense and fairness, the downstream states, more particularly Egypt, are extremely concerned with maintaining the Nile status quo. This self-centered and exclusive attitude to maintain the Nile status quo is unfair. The attempt to maintain the status quo on the basis of historic rights is untenable legally, morally, ethically, and even politically, for it would be tantamount to depriving others of life while caring for their own. Today, it is largely realized that the economic and social development of many countries is directly or indirectly dependent on the development of their water resources. But until now, mainly for economic and political reasons, the upstream use of the Nile has been unable to mount any significant share despite severe food security problems which might be solved by water resources development. On the face of such compelling circumstances, the Egyptians need to face the reality and undertake open and frank discussions so as to change the unfair water use regime. One of the challenges facing the Egyptians is to change the existing water allocation regime without running the risk of the collision course. In order to reverse the prevailing trend and lay down the basis for cooperation and equitable utilization of the Nile waters, it is high time that the Egyptians engage themselves in all-inclusive negotiations for common benefit and an integrated regional development. For sound and stable cooperation, the first step should be the change of attitude, the positive attitude being that each riparian state has the right to equitable share of the Nile water. The zero-sum game perception of one nation's gain another nation's loss should be replaced by mutual benefit and cooperative spirit.